Okay, so there's usually a little bit of a delay on this, I've noticed, between looking at what's going on the screen and what's going on my phone. It's maybe about 10, 15 seconds usually. But eventually, picture comes up. Sometimes, yeah, here we go. It came up instantly this time. Didn't have any blank screen. Everything's cool. We're ready to get started. Hi, welcome to the channel. We got today to unbox for you Nosferatu. Yes, we have Nosferatu. We have Nosferatu today. I've been waiting to make this joke for a while because I picked this figure up last year at some point. It was a while back that I got this guy, and I've been looking forward to opening him up for a while. Let me get my flashlight up. Oh, I think I left my flashlight out in the truck. Oh, well. So, well, we'll just have to take some glow-in-the-dark pictures later. It'll be fine. I'll put them in the community post because this is a glow-in-the-dark figure. This is Nosferatu. It's Max Schreck as Count Orlok from the original 1922 Nosferatu figure. Yes, this is based on a movie that's 100 years old. And even though it's a silent movie, I consider it to be like one of the first attempts at modern filmmaking. It wasn't very like in the early days of cinema, like when they first started with motion pictures, the motion picture camera, they do something like film a train showing up to a station and everybody will be wowed. And then I guess they figured out, oh, we can film plays with this. And they started filming plays. And then they figured, well, wait a minute, we don't have to just sit the camera in front of the stage like it's a spectator. We can actually move the camera around the stage. We can have close-ups, medium shots, things like that. So you went from having, a movie is, oh, here's footage of a train pulling up to a platform, to The Great Train Robbery, to Birth of a Nation, which is, kind of an evil movie, but it wound up being technically significant. And then you got Nosferatu, which is the first, I think the first true horror movie. There were, horror movies before this, like Thomas Edison's Frankenstein, which came out in 1910. But like, as far as like really trying to do what we think of as a movie nowadays, Nosferatu was one of the first ones to do it. And it was definitely the first vampire movie, or at least the earliest surviving vampire movie. Technically, there was one movie before this called Dracula's Death, which I believe was a Hungarian movie, and it's lost to time, but the novelization still exists. We know what the story was. This was the first movie actually based on Bram Stoker's novel, Dracula. Dracula's Death was not based on the novel. It just used the character. But, and make no mistake, this was based on Dracula. It says so in the opening credits of the movie. I guess they didn't really understand copyright law that well back then, because they figured if they changed all the names and everything, and there's a lot of significant changes to the story, but it's still like the bare bones of the plot, and the characters are still pretty similar. This is still Count Dracula, even if they call him Count Graf Orlok. He's still basically Count Dracula, and I'd say in a lot of ways Graf Orlok is a lot more similar to the Count Dracula of the novel than what we get later on, because the next attempt to adapt Dracula to the big screen would be, the 1931 Bela Lugosi film. And of course, the Bela Lugosi version of Dracula was one that he perfected on the stage, which, he wasn't even the first guy to play Dracula for that stage play. He was just the first guy to do it here in the United States. A guy named, what was his name? Raymond Huntley, I believe, was the actor's name, who played the original Frankenstein. He played the original Dracula on stage, and the play was done by a guy named Hamilton Dean, who played Van Helsing himself. And it was so popular in England, they brought it over here to America. But the guy who was the producer of the play in America didn't think that Hamilton Dean's version was very good, so he had it rewritten by a guy named John Balderston. And Bela Lugosi played Dracula in that stage play, which was adapted in the Universal film. And that's where, like, a lot of our modern conventions of Dracula came from. He was no longer a decrepit old guy who lived in a crumbling castle. He was now a cool, suave, handsome, sexy, charming guy that, since the play of Dracula is basically a drawing room mystery, he had to be somebody that you invite into your drawing room. So here we go with this this handsome, dashing, charming, continental fellow, the guy on my shirt, who's a lady killer in both the literal and figurative sense. But this one wasn't based on that at all. This was the only version of Dracula that was done before Bela Lugosi, so it's the only one that doesn't have any influence of that character at all. Now, when they remade Nosferatu in, I think it was like late 70s, early 80s, whenever it was, that was the Werner Herzog version, which I really like that version. I like that version a lot. That one went all the way back to the original Nosferatu, and there's still even elements of later versions in that, because you can't help but be influenced by the popular culture that surrounds you. And of course, Robert Eggers' recent Nosferatu, which I absolutely love that movie. That, I think, that version of Graf Orlok and that, I think, is the absolute closest that we've gotten in a movie to Bram Stoker's character as written in the novel. So, which previously, I think this one probably would have been closest to capturing that character, because again, it was the only version that didn't have any Bela Lugosi influence on it at all. And Christopher Lee, he played Dracula a little bit closer to the guy described in the novels, I think, but he's still, they made him look like Bela Lugosi. He's wearing a similar outfit. He's got the slicked back hair and everything. And, of course, Frank Langella, he was doing the same play that Bela did. And, I kind of feel like the Francis Ford Coppola one, Gary Oldman as Dracula, he kind of pushed that one in the opposite direction of Bela in a lot of ways. But still, when he gets to England and he's young and handsome and sexy and charming and he's seducing Mina, it's like that's again, that's the handsome, charming, continental Dracula. When my cousin Amy recently, she tried to watch the Robert Eggers Nosferatu and she couldn't get through it. She had to stop watching it eventually. And the thing that she said to me was, I kept waiting as I was watching this movie for him to get sexy, and he never got sexy. And I'm like, well, yeah, he's the guy from the book. He's a decrepit old monster. That's how it is. So Bobby Wald is here, and I haven't been trying to neglect you, but I've just been kind of off on a tangent. And Bobby Wald says, I'm kind of missing the blank screen. It was the mystery. It brought how to use my imagination to guess the figure. Yeah, well, we don't always have to use our imagination for anything. I suppose if you want to, you can just start the video and just not look at it and just listen to it. But yeah, today we got Nosferatu. Technically, the character's name is Graf Orlok, like I mentioned. But we always just kind of call this character Nosferatu because it was the name of the movie. It's a cultural shorthand. It's colloquial at this point. But like I said, we all know what this guy's real name is, and that real name is Dracula. So anyway, Mego was probably the biggest manufacturer of action figures in the 1970s, at least up until a small company in Cincinnati called Kenner acquired the rights to an independent sci-fi movie that, nobody thought was going to go anywhere. What was the name of the movie again? Oh, yeah, Star Wars. So they introduced 3 3/4-inch Star Wars action figures and revolutionized the action figure industry. But before that, action figures were a little more inspired by the original G.I. Joe. They were 12-inch figures that had fabric, like actual soft goods uniforms that you could change out. And during the oil crisis in the 1970s, Mego had the bright idea to make like a smaller version of a GI Joe called they called it Action Jackson, and it was basically the same concept as the GI Joe Adventure Team at the time, or he was Action Jackson was kind of an adventurer, looked kind of vaguely like Evil Knievel, having like kind of the jumpsuit and everything, and he had different outfits that you could swap out Action Jackson with, make him a fisherman or a baseball player, or really any kind of character you wanted to. Pretty much had an Action Jackson type outfit. And Action Jackson, I don't think it sold that well. I don't think it sold that well. It might have sold okay, but it didn't set the world on fire. So Mego was trying to think about something else that they could do with these 8-inch action figure bodies that they had tons of. And they're like, why don't we license out some superhero characters? Kids like superheroes. So they did Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, etc. And those sold like hotcakes. Those sold like gangbusters. So then they tried other licensed properties like Star Trek, Planet of the Apes. That was a big one for them. Starsky and Hutch. Eventually, when you got into the later part of the 70s, they even brought back 12-inch figures and started making 12-inch figures. And then a little before Star Wars, they even started making their own 3 3/4-inch figures, comic action heroes. But of course, once Star Wars became the standard for action figures, then everybody wanted to do 3 3/4-inch action figures, and they did Dukes of Hazzard in both 3 3/4-inch and 8-inch. They did Chips in both 3 3/4-inch and 8-inch. I suspect the reason they did Chips in 8 inches because they wanted to reuse Fonzie's motorcycle. That was another one, Happy Days. They did 8-inch figures for Happy Days. But eventually, Mego went through, I guess, kind of a financial crisis, and the company folded and went away for a while. And but Mego always lived on in the hearts of its fans and collectors. We always loved Mego. We always collected the old figures. I used to have a pretty big collection of 8-inch Megos, but I had to sell them eventually because, I didn't have enough room for stuff and I was short on money, and I'm like, I'll just get rid of these. I'm kind of I kept a few of them. Like I have Green Arrow and I have the Hulk and I have Batgirl from my original Mego collection, and I have from my childhood my very original, my very first Mego Spider-Man that still has the extra snaps that my grandmother sewed on the back, so his outfit would close all the way in the back. So when I talk about Mego, know that I'm coming at it from a place of pure nostalgia. These are figures that I love because they're the first action figures that I ever had were Superman and Batman in this 8-inch format. Mr. Mxyzptlk, Robin, Spider-Man, Captain America. I had tons of them and I loved them. And eventually, like various toy companies would try to bring back the 8-inch format in various ways, but finally, Marty Abrams himself was convinced by Paul Clark, a.k.a. Dr. Mego himself. Marty Abrams was convinced to bring back the original Mego. He's got a little blurb about it on the back. It says here, Marty Abrams, a.k.a. the father of the action figure, has relaunched these figures in response to overwhelming demand. Mego, pronounced Mego, Corp was started by his father, David Abrams, in 1954 and named by his younger brother, Howard, who would say Mego too. Howard later became the head of sales for the company. Mego Corp sold over 20 million of its now standard 8-inch action figures worldwide, and Mego Corporation is proud to take over that fine heritage today. So technically it's a different company, but it's a different company with the same name, founded by the same guy who ran it back in the 1970s. It says here, with special thanks to consultant Dr. Mego, who I already mentioned, sculptors Sean Sampson and seamstress Rachel Baker. And we're going to have a look at their work when we open this up. So we got this nice illustration here of Graf Orlok. It's a pretty simple, cartoony looking illustration, but very recognizable. And then again, a kind of simple cartoonified illustration of Orlok's shadow stalking up the stairs to go attack Ellen Hutter in her room. Ellen Hutter being the Mina Harker character in this version. And like Germany, like they just had to give it a bleak ending where Ellen has to sacrifice herself to keep Orlok out of his coffin until the first crow of the cock. Yeah. And then since he's kept out of his coffin until daylight, he disintegrates into nothingness. And that's the end of the movie. But I think personally it's pretty fitting that the first cinematic Dracula is killed by sunlight. It's not something that was in the original stories. And in the novel, indeed, Count Dracula could move about in daylight. He just was somewhat weaker as far as his powers go. But he was still able. He wouldn't disintegrate in daylight like Orlok did. But it's a movie. It's a motion picture, which of course movies are light and shadow. So it kind of makes sense in a metaphorical way that this guy was killed by light because he's a shadow. What happens when you shine light on a shadow? It disappears, right? Because it's not there anymore. So that's it makes sense that that would be the way this character would go out. So there was a smudge on the tip of his nose, and I was hoping I'd be able to get it off, and sure enough, it rubbed right off. I don't even know if it was like an actual smudge or just like a little piece of crud that was stuck on him in the package. Final Girl is here. Final Girl 27. Hi to you. Welcome. So, like most Mego action figures, Graf Orlok here has a soft goods fabric costume, and there's some embroidery on the front to represent the buttons and the embroidery on his coat in the movie. You can see it's a black coat with kind of gray cuffs at the end, and then this sort of silvery thread here. He's got a gray, I'm not sure what this is, if it's an actual shirt. I guess we're going to find out, with like a little bit of an ascot attached to it. And it is indeed, he has like almost like a spandex sort of tank top with this ascot attached to it. And he's been working out. Graf Orlok's been doing his stomach crunches. So, and then he's got what appears to be just like a plain cotton pants. Those have like a Velcro fastener in the back to hold them closed. And of course, it's Velcro to hold it closed here. In the old days, like I said, Mego used metal snaps. But these days, it's more cost effective for them to use Velcro closures. When asked about the whether or not they would bring back the snaps, Dr. Mego on the Facebook page had mentioned that it's actually a lot more expensive to do the metal snaps these days. So that is a concession that was made towards economics to switch to Velcro. And of course, Velcro is the more modern way to do things. And it's not like Mego wasn't like experimenting with Velcro themselves in the 1980s and even like the later part of the 70s. They were starting to get into using Velcro on certain things. So it's possible if Mego had have continued making toys on into the 80s and 90s, that they would have started to use they would have started, the original Mego company would have started to use Velcro closures at some point. But man, that's a great head sculpt. Looks just like Max Schreck in the movie. The costume detailing is on point. Like I said, this shirt and this ascot are made out of spandex, which are not materials that would have been used back in the 1920s, because spandex did not exist. And even if it did, they probably wouldn't have used it for his shirt and his ascot. This probably would have been more like a silken kind of material. But I kind of feel like the spandex works. It has the look of silk without actually being silk. It has that kind of sheen to it, and that's what's really most important. And it's probably a lot cheaper and probably a little more durable I usually preferred when I made a lot of Mego customs back in the day. I usually used spandex for pretty much everything, like whether it was appropriate or not. So to me, I have no problem with this. Let's see. He's got these lapels on his jacket. That one got folded down a little bit. If there's one problem with this guy is that the Graf Orlok in the movie was kind of a little bit hunchbacked, and I don't think they quite caught it with this version. He's standing fairly upright and doesn't quite have a hunchback. Now, granted, you're dealing with using the same body that's used for everything. Like I said, all the Megos work off of a common body. So, he's got a tear at his shoulder, at his elbow here. You see that? That probably happened in the package because they had him posed like that in the package. Well, that's unfortunate, but I think I can patch that up. I don't think that should be a problem. It's just a little bit of simple sewing. It should be fine. So yeah. But there's only so much you could do with something like that. I suppose you could put some padding in the back and kind of space it out a little bit. And I'm like, oh, I tore that. Wow, this fabric that was used on his jacket is really delicate, like really super delicate, because I tried to pull it up a little bit and actually tore another hole in it. Wow. So I don't know what's up with this jacket, but if you buy one of these, be really super careful with it, because apparently it'll tear like nobody's business. So I might have to like just make him an entirely new jacket. That's crazy. Now, granted, like this guy, like he's kind of supposed to be kind of shabbily dressed anyway, because he's been living in a ruined castle for like hundreds of years. So I kind of figure that's not the worst, but I'm still gonna want to be like really careful with him. I'm even gonna, you know what? I'm not gonna even talk about the articulation on this figure, and I'm not gonna try to take off his jacket like I was thinking would be fun to do before and have a better look at like some of the stuff underneath. I'm just not going to fool with it anymore. It's just going to, I think this is like a light felt is what it is. It doesn't even seem to be a woven material, which is probably why it tore the way it did. So that's unfortunate, but he's a nice looking figure, but I'm going to go ahead and suggest if anybody buys this, keep him on the card. Because like I said, this jacket is just like, oh man, I don't even want to mess with this thing anymore. But yeah, I guess that's pretty much it for this episode. I'll go ahead and take off his shoes. And it looks like the whole body is glow in the dark underneath. Not that it would matter, because I'm not gonna take off this jacket. So there's no way to find out. Like that looks like the arms. I guess I can peek through the sleeve here at the spandex. Maybe they should have used spandex for his jacket too, and then it wouldn't be tearing like this. Man, I can't believe it did that. And I didn't like put a whole lot of effort into it. It just tore like so easily. Man. And like I said, that elbow was torn like that, like straight out of the package. So what are you going to do about it? Oh, well, I guess that's it for Graf Orlok, because I don't want to move him anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and take my thumbnail picture, and hopefully I can get a good picture out of him without moving him around too much. But the head sculpt's great. It's just the jacket is kind of like a little bit on the weak side. So like I said, if you open this guy up, just be really careful with him. He's probably gonna have a torn elbow like that straight out of the package like mine did. Anyway, that's it for Nosferatu. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure that you like and subscribe and all the fun YouTube stuff down below. YouTube likes it when I say like and subscribe, so I like to say like and subscribe. Bobby Wald says, who knew ancient Dracula was that fragile? Well, he himself seems fairly sturdy. It's just his jacket that's kind of fragile. So, you know, I could pretty easily make a new coat for him, but the thing that concerns me about it is all that lovely embroidering they have down there. I would have to like re-sew all that. Maybe I could just cut this part off and kind of stick it to the front of a new jacket that I would make. But yeah, I think that might be something that I might consider doing, is just making him a new jacket. They probably should have made the jacket just out of like cotton, or like maybe like kind of like more of a velour material. This is just like a really weak fabric. It's like I said, I just kind of tried to pull it up a little bit here in the back and wound up like tearing that big old hole. See that hole? It's very delicate fabric. Just fair warning to anybody who buys one of these. So next episode, I'm gonna be back, and we're gonna be going back into the world of Masters of the Universe, which I love Masters of the Universe. This is the channel that Masters of the Universe Origins built, and I've got another Masters of the Universe Origins to open just for Halloween. And what better character to open on Halloween than Skeletor? Because, we always associate Halloween with skeletons, and we always associate Halloween with mummies. And we got Mumra. It's Skeletor and Mumra in one figure, Skelra. And I'm going to talk a little bit about, when I open this up, a little bit about the history of Skeletor and why this might be a more significant figure than you might initially think in a lot of ways. But we're going to delve deep into the history of how Mark Taylor created Skeletor and talk a little bit about some of the roots of the character. So should be a lot of fun. Hope you join me. If you want to make sure you don't miss that episode, again, make sure you like and subscribe and all the fun YouTube stuff down below. Hit the little bell. Is the little bell still a thing? I haven't seen the little bell in a while. I'm kind of a little bit worried about the little bell. Is the little bell doing okay? I don't know. Anyway, that's it for this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. We will talk to you next time. We'll be back with Skelra. And then we'll have more Halloween stuff to open up later. I think the next episode after that might wind up being Marty McFly. I don't know. It's going to depend on what my schedule. Today's the 18th. Yeah, I'm going to have to. I'm not sure when I'm going to go visit my mom this week. So I probably need to talk to her about that. But anyway, that's it for this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.